Hello, today I'm going to review Lucy starring Scarlett Johansson. I sort of had low expectation with this movie because I wasn't really too hyped for this film. I feel that this movie is unoriginal and I have seen something like this before. However, my aunt wanted to see it, so I decided to go with her. After all, I am a fan of both science fiction and action movies. So now that I saw this movie with my aunt, my friend Jia Chin, and his mom Emma, what do I think of this movie? It's not the greatest movie I ever saw, but it was a decent entertaining film, and I'm going to tell you why I think this way. Let's start with the story. The story took place in Taiwan, where a young woman named Lucy was living and studying until she was kidnapped by those Korean mob dealers and puts drugs on her body. She later realized that the drugs in her body has given her superpowers and became smarter. So her mission is to meet a professor who knows a lot of those drugs and collect them before those evil Korean mob dealers do. The story of this film was okay. I do agree with a lot of people that the story of this film was too similar to Limitless. However, in my opinion, it's more like a science fiction version of the Bourne trilogy. While I do think the beginning part was boring, it later get better from middle to end. It was pretty interesting that the part where Lucy discovers what she can do with her powers and thinks like a program. Now let's move on with the special effects and action scenes. The special effects of this film were cool to look at. I really do enjoy the cities of Taiwan, and those movie things on the computer screens reminds me of the Matrix trilogy. Some of the scenes in the movie reminds me of the scientific shows I watch on Discovery Channel and the ones back in science class in high school. For the action scenes, well, I don't want to give too much away, but I really do like the fight scenes, the car chase scenes, and Lucy sure knows how to kick everybody's butt. Now for the acting and directing. Let's start with the main character Lucy, played by Scarlett Johansson, who is best known as Black Widow in Iron Man 2, The Avengers, and Captain America 2 The Winter Soldier. She will of course return in the Avengers sequel, Age of Ultron. Her portrayal as Lucy was pretty good. Her character Lucy at first started off as an unlikable woman, but when the special drug was in her body, she became a superwoman who has the ability to communicate with someone, beat the living crap out of those bad guys, and track down the same drugs that is in her body. Now for Professor Norman, played by Morgan Freeman, who has been in a lot of movies including the Dark Knight trilogy. He did an amazing job playing Professor Norman. His portrayal as that scientist was smart, and he was good at teaching college students about science and generation. Well, of course, after all, I am still a college student. Then there's that evil Korean mob boss played by, well, that Korean actor. His portrayal as the leader of the Korean mob dealers was nothing too memorable. That guy who is from the movie Contagion has played the French cop did okay in my opinion. Ang Lee's son, Mason Lee, and that girl who played that babysitter in Crazy Stupid Love were also in this movie as well, but they are more like cameo appearances. Now for the director, Luc Besson, who is best known for directing Leon the Professional and The Fifth Element. I think he did alright directing this film. He usually directs action and science fiction movie. He was a very smart and talented French director, even though he has worked on some crappy films. Overall, Lucy was a decent movie. It's not one of the best movies I ever saw, but don't get me wrong, it's an entertaining film. The story was nothing special, but at least Scarlett Johansson's performance, Morgan Freeman's performance, the effects and the action scenes was pretty tight. I wish I could see more action scenes. In my opinion, while it's a fun and enjoyable movie, it's not as good as Luc Besson's previous films like Leon the Professional and The Fifth Element. However, I still think it's both entertaining and decent at the same time. I will definitely give this movie 2.5 out of 5 nuclear bombs. If you're a fan of action movies, I suggest you should rent it or wait for it on Netflix. if it's available.